Okay, so I am pulling out the big dog here right out of the gate. And the first emotion, that very, very, very self-destructive emotion that I want to talk about is fear. If you are feeling uncertain, if you are feeling terrified, we all feel fear. You know what fear feels like. And you might not always recognize it though. You might just be feeling a little uncomfortable or just unsure. But I see fear creating probably the most destructive tendencies in people's lives. Probably it's what leads to the most destructive behaviors. And it really is a killer if you let it. And I mean that in the literal sense as well as the figurative sense. So when we're afraid, when we're feeling fear, what that means is that there is something ahead of us that we cannot identify. We don't know what it is. And the longer we go not knowing what it is we're facing or about to face, the more fear we feel. And fear will literally knock you on your butt. It will cause you to become very ill. A lot of people, because of fear, will go down a very self-destructive path. I call these people runners, always running, whether they are drinking all the time to drown whatever's bothering them, whether, they get into drugs. A lot of people who get really heavy into drugs do that because they don't know how to face the unknown, and they don't like the unknown, and they feel like by numbing it, by masking it and hiding behind it, that they can avoid it. And unfortunately, that's not the way that it works. It doesn't matter how many drugs, how many drinks you have. It doesn't matter. Your fears, unless you face them, will not disappear. So I'm going to tell you just a quick story. I'll keep it as quick as I can. For years and years and years, I had these dreams that were absolutely terrifying. Terrifying. I would be running down the hall and run into a room, my bedroom or any other room, and try and close the door from whatever it was that was behind me. And I could feel whatever it was pushing on that door, and I was trying with everything I had to keep it out because I knew. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't see it. I didn't want to look at it. It scared the crap out of me, and I felt like if I let whatever it was in that room, it was going to get me, and it was going to kill me, and it was going to be, that was it. It was like that feeling, when you're watching a horror movie and you're like, don't run upstairs, are you stupid? What's wrong with you? But it was that same kind of feeling. Just, it scared me horribly. And I would wake up just in sweating. I'd sweat through everything. I would be so afraid. And then I started realizing a pattern that these dreams were coming if I had a big meeting the next day where I needed to speak or present, and especially if there was a topic that I was supposed to talk on or something and I didn't feel totally comfortable. Really that's what it boiled down to, is that I had something coming up that made me feel really uncomfortable. Maybe I was feeling inferior, but the bottom line is that I realized that dream always happened when I was feeling out of control with my job, with my family, and I realized one day that in my dream, I had inadvertently let in the scary thing behind the door. It overpowered me and it pushed through the door. And I remember in my dream, I fell down and I looked up and there was nothing there. And I had that happen a couple times before it clicked that I was afraid of what I couldn't see. And in the end, there was nothing there. I was building things up and building things up and building things up in my mind to be so much worse than they actually were. And I realized that in order to overcome those dreams, And to overcome my fears, I had to turn around and face them. And that is very, very true of all fears. You need to face it. Now, I realize that you're not always going to know what it is. Maybe you know, your subconscious knows. You just, you know, you have a feeling, an inkling, you're feeling fear, or, you know, maybe it is that meeting at work. Maybe you have a test coming up. So at this point, what do you do then to overcome that fear? What do you do? Well, at this point, it's really, really, really important for you to do everything in your power to find out what it is that you are facing and prepare as best you can for it. Now, you may not hit, you know, cross every T and dot every I in that quest, but by being proactive and trying to identify the unknown, it will make a very big difference for you and the amount of fear that you're feeling in your life. You know, another good example is with, you know, when we find ourselves in debt and people are calling you, or you're getting bills in the mail and it's overwhelming and it scares you because maybe you know you don't have that kind of money, you know, and you start avoiding the creditors and you start doing that. And then that creates another kind of a fear, whereas if you would pick up the phone and talk to the people and explain the situation, 9 times out of 10, they're willing to work with you. They're willing to work something out. So that fear, that buildup, that stress that you were feeling really wasn't necessary. So just keep in mind that a lot of times our fear is very much built up. The thing that we feel like we need to be afraid of is very, very much built up in our imagination. And if we turn around and we face that fear and we stop trying to hide from it, then we can address the issue. And, you know, more often than not, it turns out to really be nothing. So don't be afraid to face whatever it is that's coming at you that you might be feeling afraid of right now. That is the best way to overcome that beast called fear. All right, have a good night. Bye-bye.